Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Hope you're having a great Saturday. This should have come out last night. However, when I got into editing mode, I found out that 20 minutes of it was pixelated and my voice was choppy, and I just gave up and went to bed. I've had a huge internet issue. It seems like it's followed me from Murdoch to Boise to here. So they're coming out Monday because it's super frustrating when you spend 30 minutes sitting down doing the episode only to find it didn't work out. So we're going to try this again. All right, music fact of the day, the Ramones. This is the coolest story. The band got their name actually by using Paul McCartney's fake hotel check-in name. Paul would check into hotels using the name Paul Ramone. Dee Dee, he was a huge fan, and so he changed his name to Dee Dee Ramone, and then they decided to call the name of their band the Ramones. So there you go. Now you know. We're going to pick back up into this days 1 through 3 of Letecia Stauch's trial. Man, guys, I'm going to tell you, it is just painful listening to these phone calls. There is something to be said about the composure that Al had while sitting there listening to her spew all of this craziness. There were times he gets a little heated, but he is so quick to rein it back in and just focus on getting her to admit to something. And I love the way that he kind of switches to, well, maybe it was an accident, seeing if he can get her to admit that something happened and maybe she panicked. Just, it's been amazing to listen to his composure, because I'm going to tell you, if that were my kid, I could not have been that composed. All right, so let's jump back into it. Now, Letecia gives like 1,000 different stories of what happened to Gannon, and we're going to get into another one. Letecia said they saw a man working nearby, so she asked if the man could fix the carpet that she says Gannon burned. She said she gave the man the code to get into the garage. Now, Al wasn't happy that she gave this man the code, even though he knows this is all lies. And she said she only did it to make the boy less upset. She doesn't call him Gannon. She calls him the boy. Then she said she set the house alarm to away. At some point, it switched over to stay. So she called ADT to ask why that would happen. If you have an alarm system, when you set it to away, it detects any movement in your house. And so the alarm triggers. When you set it to stay, you can be inside your house and move around and the sensors won't trigger. But if you were to open a window or a door, then your alarm would go off. So it's a way to be safe in your home without somebody coming in. So they said when there's movement in the house with no triggers on the sensor, that's why the alarm wouldn't sound. Letecia got on an exercise bike at this point, according to her, and she said Gannon went to his room. She put her headphones on, and Gannon told Letecia his dad said he could go visit a friend. She said as long as it's in the neighborhood and he doesn't have to get in a car to go there. So she said she put her headphones back on and hears a loud noise downstairs. She said it was 10, 15, or 20 minutes later. She said she actually wasn't on the exercise bike at that point, but she was doing her pre-workout pump up to get motivated. She said she had wanted to do the exercise bike daily. She thought Gannon was playing somewhere in the house, and then she said she hears another noise, and she got irritated because Gannon was thumping around when he was supposed to be on his way to a friend's house. She said she went to go talk to Gannon, and then she saw a man who she thought was the carpet guy because there were boxes and there was pieces of carpet in there. Then, according to her, she goes out. She said she hit the table in Gannon's room, and she remembers pieces here and there, like Gannon jumping on the guy's back. And then she remembers a really calm conversation that Gannon had with this intruder. It's really hard sometimes to understand what she's saying because she is shrieking and screaming and crying. And so if I don't get it right, sorry about that. It's just sometimes there's not enough volume. It can be a disaster trying to figure out what she's saying. Sometimes it's just word salad with banjo mixed in. And if you're new to the podcast, banjo is my nickname for when Southerners get very animated and talk fast because it just sounds all jumbled up. She said Gannon knew something about something, and she heard the man ask, "Do you know where Uncle Matt is?" And she said when she regained full consciousness, Gannon said he would be back later. She said there was no blood in the house when she woke up. Letecia said she hit her head twice trying to fight this guy off. She said, "My mind was completely effing gone." Al asked, "Why did you tell me you were sexually assaulted when you weren't?" And she says, "Like, this hasn't been hard knowing someone's there to hurt me and Gannon. They're going to call me names and you won't want me. I've tried, but didn't know what was going on." She said it would be all over El Paso news, meaning if she had told Al about being assaulted by this guy. She said it was a blur, and poor Letecia said she was in and out of it. And at one point, she got up and ran to the door and sent Lena away. Harley shows up, and she said she told Harley to take Lena to the Dollar Tree and to get carpet powder and spray for the dogs immediately. Letecia said the reason she did this is because she did not want Harley and Lena to get involved, and the man was downstairs with Gannon. So she says, "I'm freaked out like I'm in some Lifetime movie," and says no matter who she calls, they're going to do me just like they're doing me now. The man had Gannon wrapped in his arms. "Do you want Lena to come and be there too?" So when she says that they're going to do me just like they're doing me now, she's trying to justify why she hasn't told the truth yet. So on this phone call, of course, she's crying, and she says she couldn't get back up the stairs and she wasn't sure what she would do if she could make it outside. She said she sent Harley a text saying that she would explain all of this later and said she was trying to check on Gannon. Then she tells Al to look at the camera since your neighbor has every effing camera footage. Al says, "Well, I probably would have to pay him another $5,000, so that's probably not going to happen." Letecia says their neighbor who had their surveillance of Gannon getting in the truck with her was paid $5,000 for the video. And she said at this point, tens of thousands of people have watched it. And she said that video proved that Gannon actually got out of the truck on the other side when they returned home. Letecia said she was trying to get into the closet and her gun was already in the car. She said she initially told the man the gun was in the house and that he grabbed it. Letecia says the man knew what kind of car Al's mom drove when she would come stay with them. When Al said he thought Gannon was hiding, Letecia said she was kind of culture shocked and didn't know how to handle the situation. She had to go into defense mode and get the girls out of the house and wait for Gannon to get back home. I mean, this is so confusing. She said she remembered Gannon asking if this man was going to take him to Uncle Matt's house. So Gannon freely went with him. She said, "I don't know Uncle Matt." And she says, "I'm not crazy." Then she says that Gannon kept going outside to the gate. He had been talking to someone who was on the outside of the gate. She said she asked officers to find out who was parked outside that night or talking to Gannon, and she said nobody had helped her. Later on direct, Al said that Gannon was nearly 5 foot tall and he still couldn't reach the gate lock from the back, that Gannon would have needed to have been in the front to unlock that gate. So Letecia goes on a little fishing expedition here. She asks what cameras the neighbors have. Like, are they recording 24/7? Which direction are they pointed in? And she says Gannon unlocked the gate and wanted it kept unlocked. Al says they got my gun, so hopefully they can get this guy's fingerprints off of it. And Letecia says that would be perfect. He tells her investigators are trying to find things like fingerprints on the gate. Letecia said that she is mad they didn't do it already, and they've been barking up the wrong tree for 3 weeks. Letecia asked, "Do you think I did this?" And Al says, "Tisha, I don't know." She says she's told police everything and doesn't think it's the carpet guy because he didn't have what she calls craters on his face, which I'm assuming is maybe scars from acne. Here I am sitting here talking about these people as if they exist, and they don't. So it's kind of weird sometimes to talk about people that are figments of her imagination or part of her stupid alibi or part of her 50 alibis. Al wonders if they found this guy from Craigslist because he wonders if the intruder was the Craigslist guy. Letecia said that people say there's no sign of the intruder leaving the house because, I mean, conveniently, the camera sensitivity didn't pick this person up. Letecia says, whatever time they have me on footage. Then she says she went to Petco twice that day. The second time was after This Craigslist guy met with her about the bike, according to Letecia. She says the guy was already waiting in the house and said it's possible that the man stayed in the house the night before because Gannon was keeping his door locked. She's crying at this point, asking, "Don't you think I want my life back? That hospital bill I gave you was from my whole body." She said they took DNA. And then she said there was blood on Gannon's wall and light switch. And she said there was still blood on the light switch when Al got back from Oklahoma. And Letecia said she showed it to him. Letecia says, "Why are you acting like you've got me on some trial with this?" She said Gannon picked his fingers all the time. And Al says, "I don't know why you feel like you're on trial. I'm talking to my wife." So she starts yelling that Gannon bleeds all the time and asks if he told him, and by him, I'm assuming she means an investigator, about the nosebleed in the truck Gannon had when they were in Alaska. And Al says he doesn't remember that. Letecia says Gannon has a nosebleed every week or two. And she said, "This is why I get angry. People come up and talk all this crap and they don't even know Gannon." Al says he doesn't even deal with social media. So she must have been talking about what people are saying online. I would be curious how much she went on these news sites to look at what people were saying about Gannon. It seems like often because she mentioned it a few times. When asked how she arranged the meeting with the guy from Craigslist, she yells, "They have my phone, Albert." And Al flat out asks, "Did you kill Gannon?" And Letecia says, "I can't believe you asked me this. Tell me why you think I would kill Gannon." The answer is no. And Al said, "This is the fourth version of the same story." Letecia says, "First off, you never even listened to me about anything that went on." And he said, he's been listening to try to get it straight. Then he kind of switches gears, and I think this was a really smart move, and asked if there was an accident. She said, "Really? I thought you were going to support me and bring our family back together. I can't believe that. We cried about Kobe. We did a lot together." Remember, she said that Gannon saw her crying the day Kobe Bryant was killed in the helicopter crash. She said she's smart enough to know how to handle an accident with a child. And Al said, "I know you wouldn't hurt the kids intentionally." And Letecia says, "I don't have anything to do with it. Who says he's dead? I can't even believe you're saying that Gannon isn't alive. What's wrong with you?" And Al says, "Because Gannon would have been found by now, and he would have been captured on the neighbor's surveillance video." Y'all think somebody's going to come in here and say something just to appease everyone? I mean, she is yelling and crying. "I didn't do it. You don't want me anymore? Fine. You don't want our family anymore? Fine." So Al asks her, "Did you kill Gannon?" And she says, "No." He asked, "Did he die on your watch naturally or from an accident?" She says, "No." He asked, "Did Gannon have an accident and then you freaked out and covered it up?" She says, "No." Then he asked, "Did Harley kill Gannon?" And she said, "God, no." He said, "Did she have anything to do with an accident or a cover up?" Letecia says, "No, I haven't been involved either." Call from Valentine's Day of 2020. Al asked Letecia what's wrong, and she says she's tired of crying. And then Al says, "Well, happy Valentine's Day." She asks how Lena is, and Al asks her why. And Letecia says, "I can't ask where our kids are at." And Al says, "Well, I think that's a fair question. Where's Harley?" Letecia said that she went to the doctor last night because of chest pains, and he asked which hospital she was at. And Letecia said they could be listening and know where we're at. She says, "You talk crap about me." And he asks when, and says he's always been there for her. She said she asked him for help, and if he ever needed anything, she was there for him. He says, "You took $2,000 out of their account at the beginning of the month," which is a third of his income, by the way. He said he didn't say anything about it. He said he's offered help and safety, but Letecia and Harley stepped out on him. She said it cost $1,500 for a place to stay. And then she says they were staying somewhere. It was $125 a night plus a pet fee. They had to get food, and they were taking Ubers. And then she says, "Do you know how bad it is to ask somebody to drive their car to the store?" Al said he's just trying to get to the truth, and says she won't tell him where she's staying. Letecia gaslights, of course, and says, "You're not on my side. You're talking crap about me." And there's so much about me, I. Her and Lori Vallow are so similar. They gaslight. They turn things around to make everything everybody else's fault. They're constantly victims. Nothing's ever been their fault. It is interesting, the parallels between these two women. Al said that Letecia needs to understand what he's going through, and all he's focused on is Gannon. He also says he doesn't know why people are not happy with Letecia on social media. He said that he's just trying to respect her, but she needs to respect him too. He tells her that respect is important to him and she can respect him with the truth. He tells her there are options to work through things together, and she asks what options, and he says the options don't come into play until he gets the truth. So then she changes the subject and says that she's been kicked off the car insurance and she's listed as an ex-spouse. Al said that's not true. And he reminds her that she would have gotten the email notification at the same time he got one, and nobody but her had access other than him to that account. She said if it was done, it wasn't on purpose. He reassures her they can work through this and says her being willing to talk about the options that they have is a start. So she asks if he's talked to an attorney and filed for divorce yet, and he says not yet. Al says her asking means she doesn't trust him and maybe she's got somebody watching him. Letecia said it was posted on social media, and he asks by who because he says he has not said this to anyone. She asks why he wasn't talking to her when she picked him up from the airport, and Al said he had been looking into things himself, and at this point, things just weren't adding up. Letecia says, I'm begging you. If they give me immunity, I will help. I can't get in trouble for it. And then she goes on to womansplain what immunity is and says a judge says she will not be charged with anything in the case, and in return, she'll give them information on who has Gannon, and then she would testify against them. Al asks if she knew how someone took Gannon and who has him. Letecia tells him not to put words in her mouth. The talking goes on, and she just yells, I need immunity. She said if she has immunity, she can tell him more. And Al says, why couldn't you have told me more from the beginning? And she says, they're going to kill me and my daughter. At this point, she is just screaming, I need immunity, please. And then she says, are you recording me? Al's like, I wished you a happy Valentine's Day. Why would I say that if that's being recorded? That's personal between the two of us. He asks why her first thought is what they may do to her and Harley when something clearly has been done to Gannon, and she's not worried about that. She yells that Lena was there too. And then she says that the guy was still in the house when the police searched the home. You can't make this stuff up, y'all. He said he would reach out to one of the agents about immunity. Letecia says don't reach out to Bethel because she is being treated like a criminal. She is screaming and yelling, I'm not a criminal. I don't kill people. You can kind of hear somebody whispering to him in the background. And Letecia said that she got a message yesterday, but she needs immunity before she shows the message to investigators. Al asks, is this person here with you now? Leticia's crying and asking, what can I do? And Al said he needs to know that Gannon is safe. She's still yelling about immunity and says that people are going to ask her, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that, as her reasoning for why she needs immunity. I've been on the road covering trials for 12 weeks so far this year, and Base has made my travel so much easier. It's an overpacker's dream. It can be hard to fit everything in, especially when it comes to luggage, but with Base, there's room for everything. Base was created by actress Shay Mitchell to make sleek and affordable bags, luggage, and accessories designed to help you travel effortlessly while still looking fashionable. Base has thought of everything you could ever want in a piece of luggage. 360-degree gliding wheels, a cushion handle, a built-in weight indicator that has saved me from last-minute overweight luggage fees and scrambling to balance weight between my bags. We've all been there. It also has washable bags for your dirty clothes and all the interior pockets you need to keep organized. Their luggage comes in multiple sizes and colors, and for shorter trips, the Weekender bag is super functional. It even has a place to store your shoes separately. I can see why Base has over 30,000 five-star reviews, one of those from me. Right now, Base is offering my listeners 15% off your first purchase by visiting basetravel.com/whattheworld. Go to basetravel.com/whattheworld for 15% off your first purchase. That's Base, BEIS travel.com/whattheworld. Summer is around the corner, and living in the humid South, I find myself wearing less makeup to let my skin breathe easy, but I still want a little coverage. Kosas has me covered, literally. Kosas makes clean makeup for people who take their skincare seriously. Their complexion products are actually proven to make your skin better and are dermatologist tested, safe for sensitive and acne-prone skin, and hypoallergenic. Kosas Revealer Concealer. It's not your mom's concealer. It's super creamy, weightless, and it's a total multitasker. It's a concealer, eye cream, and spot treatment in one. Millions of people have tried Kosas, making it one of the best-selling makeup collections at Sephora. So don't choose between wearing great makeup and taking care of your skin. Right now, Kosas is offering my listeners 15% off your first purchase of $50 or more when you go to kosas.com/whattheworld. Go to Kosas, KOSAS.com/whattheworld for 15% off your first purchase of $50 or more, plus free shipping. That's kosas.com/whattheworld. Al says maybe she can tell him something that he could call into a tip line anonymously, and she yells for him not to do that. Letecia said, I didn't know at the time. I thought they were going to find the guy, and she was terrified, which is why she says she sent Lena and Harley to the Dollar Tree, and she thought Gannon was hiding too. Al says, that's huge and helpful. And Letecia says, I'm not making this up. She says she doesn't want to say anymore because they'll try to incriminate her. And she said, I need immunity. And she said the man was there for 4 hours, by the way. Letecia said she thought Gannon was safe. And Al asks if it's possible maybe he crawled into a box or something. Letecia said she put Harley and Lena into the master bedroom. Al asks her about the gun she said she had that day because she has said the guy had a gun and she couldn't get hers to work. He asked her when it was that she figured out that Gannon was not alone. And Letecia said she's not talking anymore. She needs immunity. Al said if she just gave the name of the person who she met from Craigslist, he could fix it right now. She cries some more about immunity and said the man, of course, lied about his name. Then Al asks if it was Travis, who is an ex-boyfriend, apparently, of Letecia's. Letecia had told him in the past that he was abusive. Letecia says they're going to try to incriminate me, and Al says that he would fight with her. Letecia asks who's listening in on this call. So Al starts telling her where everybody in his family is at that time. He says Uncle Jeff is getting on a plane. Landon and Veronica went somewhere, and then they were going to get Lena. Letecia never gave any physical features of this fake intruder during this call, and she mentioned something about a gang, but nothing identifying about this gang. So she's screaming, and Al asks her what kind of gang they were in, and she says she doesn't know. He asks if the man in the house hurt or killed Gannon, and she said, I don't know if anyone killed anyone, and mentions wanting immunity again, and then she hangs up. Later on in the day, Al calls to talk to her again. He's upset that she hung up. And Letecia says, you were being all nice and caring, listening, everything, and all of a sudden you start being hateful. She's just mad for him saying that she is lying about all this and also saying that she has information she's not giving. Al said it's her choice to choose which one it is. And Al finally just goes there and he says, start over and tell me who the F has my boy. He doesn't care about anything else. And he said, who has Gannon? And Letecia says, I want immunity. And it's really sad because Al said he would blame himself the rest of his life for this because he was just trying to be successful in his career and he just wasn't there when Gannon was killed. And then he really quickly composes himself and he reassures her it's nobody's fault about the candle or Gannon's foot. He said maybe she just panicked. Maybe he took too much medicine or hit his head. Maybe he had a bad nosebleed, but those things weren't intentional. He said maybe because he wasn't there that she panicked. And from there, he can't piece together what happened. Al says he knows there was never a man in the house that day. He said accidents happen, but we can't replace our children. And Letecia says, I was there, Albert. I'll give you his name, I swear. This is why I want immunity. Letecia says this all happened. She thought Gannon was going to the gate every day talking to someone. And she says she was followed after meeting the man with the bike. She also reminds Al that she was looking outside the windows inside the Petco to make sure Gannon was safe in the car. She mentions investigators searching around the Palmer Lake area, and she said they have my GPS. She said, I was trying to make turns in the area, and she says, well, this dude is in your truck with us. And then the call ends. Next call coming up, still Valentine's Day. Letecia said she asked authorities to get surveillance from outside the Petco and not inside. So here comes a new story. She said that when she pulled off of the exit to go to Palmer Lake to look at this bike that she was going to get as a surprise for Al, there was a man laying in the road. When she turned around, the man got in the truck with him. She said Gannon was in the back seat and he was really upset. And she said he was so upset that he threw up in the truck. She said the man was in the truck with him the whole time and got out of the truck with them at the residence. She said there was a scuffle and she told the man he could take anything he wanted. She said the man was asking about Uncle Matt and the man had a firearm when police showed up. She said she didn't know where Gannon was at this point. At this point, she said the girls were sleeping and her hands were tied to a board. And she could hear Gannon screaming. And so I was like, why do you need immunity? And Letecia says, because I didn't tell them. I don't know how bad he hurt Gannon. Then she said the man was either Mexican or mixed, around 5'7". And Al points out that the truck door would automatically be locked when they were driving. My car does the same thing, y'all. And that's a really good point by him, which is most cars these days automatically lock once you put it in reverse. So he's asking why she's panicking and why she needs immunity. Letecia said she left her phone at the counter at Petco and turns around and then says Gannon's phone was left at the Petco. Al says, what I keep doing is not letting you get me with BS. Letecia says, really? And Al says, really? He says she can smirk and roll her eyes all she wants. I kind of wonder if maybe this wasn't a FaceTime, because that either that or he just assumes, maybe based on past arguments, that she would be smirking and rolling her eyes. Letecia starts screaming that Al doesn't care about stuff, and Al says he cares about her and their marriage. And he says, if you have faith and respect for me, the truth is easier. So then Al asks, who tied you up? Who hurt Gannon? Who wants the money? Who hurt you? Who is he? Who are they? Letecia says they're going to kill her, and she's crying and says, Quincy Brown. Al says, Quincy Brown. So Quincy Brown. Al asked what kind of car he was in when he followed them, and Letecia said it was a red car. Al said, well, his name was Eduardo, but Letecia said she found out his name was actually Quincy Brown. Al asked how Gannon was hurt and how badly he was hurt. And Letecia said, when I came out, Gannon was gone. I couldn't do anything. I could hear screaming. Letecia said the man had an ID badge with the name Quincy Brown. She said he tied her up in the storage room after the police left. And at this point, it is so obvious Al is at his wit's end, y'all. He says she has given him ridiculous versions of what happened. And Letecia says, I have my life on the line. Go get your effing immunity. And Al says, I want my son back. He asks at what point during all this that she called police with the man in the house. They're just yelling back and forth. And Letecia said he's being a smart aleck. And Al said, that's because this is all bull. Letecia is still talking about immunity. And Al says, I know enough about immunity to know you're not going to get it if you keep lying about this Quincy guy. There's no Quincy Brown. There's no Eduardo. There's no Uncle Matt. And Letecia says, whatever. He says, you want us to be a family and be all intimate, but you keep lying to me. 5 years of lying, and now my son's gone. Where is Gannon? And she yells, with Quincy. Al said a 5'7" Mexican guy that changed his name to Quincy Brown that works for the home developer. Yeah, I'll tell them all that. At the end of the call, the prosecutor asked Al if he smelled any vomit in his truck when he got back from Oklahoma after Gannon was missing. And he said no. This phone call is the first time the name Quincy Brown was mentioned, by the way. Al said, of course, he's never met anyone with that name. He also says in this call, she only had one personality because, just a little spoiler alert, part of the insanity defense is she had multiple personalities. So at the end of these calls, once Al gets back on the stand, they go over how many personalities are in the phone call. The next call is still Valentine's Day in the evening, and it was around 18 minutes long. Al asks if she's ready to talk, and he asks, "Where's Gannon, Tisha? Don't tell me Quincy Brown. Tell me where Gannon is." She says, "He took him." And Al says, "Where did you take Gannon? Where is Gannon?" And Letecia said, "What's wrong with you? You think you can be this interrogator all you want." Al says, "You're my wife. I'm trying to talk to you." Letecia said, "I've told you where Gannon is. Quincy Brown took him." Al says, "F Quincy Brown. Don't ever say that name to me again because it's BS. The carpet guy is BS." And Letecia says, "Your dumb A won't go after him." Al said that she's lying, and Letecia doesn't know what he's talking about, of course. Al says, "How is it that the guy sent you a message when you didn't give him any information about you?" And then Al kind of mockingly says, "I'm getting messages. Ooh, so mysterious." Letecia says that she's called the FBI and Al calls BS. Letecia said she's tried to help, and this is why she didn't tell them from the beginning. Al says, "Yeah, because you knew I wouldn't believe you because it's all bull." Letecia says that she would send Al a photo of Quincy, and Al says, "Yeah, go ahead and send that to me. Send me Quincy Brown." Letecia said he followed her at Walmart, and Al asked how. "How did you get a photo of Quincy Brown?" And he tells her to screenshot her Google search. Letecia calls Al names. He calls him a punk. Letecia says she doesn't know where Quincy is, but reminds Al that his best friends in the police department could find him. Al says, "Where's my son, Tisha?" She called him a name again and tells him that Quincy has Gannon. Letecia says, "Do you know him? Go find him." Al said he did his own Google search, and it's a mugshot, like he found someone that apparently he knew on a mugshot site. He says, "Congrats, you found a mugshot." Al asks her how she knows they're looking in the wrong place, and she says she's the wrong tree and calls him a name again. Letecia says that the man has Gannon in Colorado Springs. And what does Al say? "Oh, you just told on yourself." So what does Letecia do? She turns it around and deflects and tries to change the conversation. And she says, "I don't know where Gannon is." And she says, Al can hook up with all the women he wants and he can curse her out because she doesn't care about him. Al gets firm and says, "That candle video, that was BS. That's the same thing you tried to do to me, and you did it to my son. And that was horrible. You should go to jail just for that. That's abuse, and you know it. And I heard you make him cry too. Where's my son?" He says this is the same thing that they've dealt with for 5 years. So I'm kind of assuming he means her lies and her behavior. Letecia says, "Sorry, but I didn't want to get killed." And Al says, "So you let Gannon get killed?" Letecia said that's why she didn't talk from the beginning. And Al tells her she better buckle up. And Letecia says he'll be waiting a long time. Letecia tells Al she's in Colorado Springs, and he says, "Hey, send me your location right now." He said, "This gap between us ain't getting no closer because you won't tell me where my son is, so I'm done. You got anything else to say before I hang up on you? Good. Don't email me. Don't message me. Don't use my name in the media." And he said, "Don't say anything about me until you tell me where Gannon is." After that call, Al goes back on the stand and explains the candle video is an example of how Letecia manipulates situations that she's in. He said, Letecia sent him a photo saying it was Quincy Brown. So Al Googled the name, which took him to a sex offender registry website, and Quincy Brown was listed as wanted in the Colorado Springs area. They note that there was only one personality on that call. This next call is still Valentine's Day, and Al says this is her chance to say what she's got to say. Letecia asks if he loves her, and he says yes. Letecia says, "If you know it was an accident, will you stand by me?" Al says yes. So you can see how switching that conversation from "what did you do" to "maybe it was an accident and you panicked" worked, because later in the day, we've got her now admitting maybe an accident happened. Al says that he would stick by her, and she apologizes for all the different stories, but she didn't know what to do. She said she did pick up the bike, and it was a big bike. She said she let Gannon take it for a ride, and he got hurt bad. She said when he fell, he got hurt because there were hills and stuff. The Craigslist guy, was helping him ride the bike. She said, I don't know how bad it was. He was bleeding from his arms, his knees, his head. And Al said, so his head was bleeding. Oh, God. Letecia said the man promised he was going to go back to his house and get bandages and call 911 because she accidentally left her phone at Petco. And then she said, I swear to God, Quincy's real. Al is so composed, y'all. And he says, so what happened, baby? Letecia says something about the man taking Gannon to call 911. Al repeats this back to her and says something I can't understand. And then Al says, the Craigslist guy. And she says, yes. He asks where she met him. And Letecia says something, I couldn't understand it. She said, I was scared when he didn't come back with him. I thought I would go keep searching. And I did. I spent the whole night. And then there's crying. Al says, in my truck. She says, I didn't want you to hate me. Al says, why would I hate you if it wasn't your fault? Al asks her to start over because it's hard for him to hear. She says something about Al chastising her, and he says, I'm not. You're telling the truth now. He's doing a really good job of just really kind of trying to reel her in with this accident new version story. Then he thanks her for telling him the truth. He said it meant the world to him and asked what exit she was at when she pulled off. And she said, 163, and it's on my phone. And then he says, well, if they give you your phone, can you find it? He asks if she can think of any kind of a landmark or anything so that he can go search. He said he can go right now and search for Gannon. She said she wasn't trying to cover up anything. She was trying to figure out why this guy took Gannon. She's crying and you just can't make sense of what she's saying. I tried. She said that he needed help because the bike was so big. Then something about they took my car. Letecia said she made the man show her his ID. She wanted to make sure. He asked if she went to his house or where did she meet him because they can. And then Letecia interrupts and says, please, please, please. It's interesting because there are times when he asks her a really pointed question, she will interrupt and keep going or change the subject because she hasn't thought up of what to say yet. Is some of these questions you can tell sort of throw her for a loop. And so she just deflects. So she doesn't have to answer it. Letecia goes on to say, he said to me he would be off that exit. When I turn off that exit, you can look. And she said she went right off of the exit, but he thought she was coming from the north. And she didn't see anybody with a bike in a store. Al says, so there was a store? And she said, there was a store. I said I didn't see it, so I went in the other direction. And Al said, oh, okay. She said when she went the other direction, she saw the man with the bike. I said, there's the guy with the bike, and I made him show me his ID. We talked, and he said this was a tour bike, and I got nervous thinking, well, why is he trying to sell a touring bike? And I asked him questions like, can you not ride anymore? Did you get hurt? Then I realized I didn't have the phone because I left it at Petco. So then Gannon apparently was high-fiving this guy, talking to him. And she said, so I assume he's a nice guy until he was helping Gannon get on the bike. Then he asked Gannon, do you think your dad will like the bike? Then before you know it, they both slid. Gannon hits his head. I ran over there and went to call 911, but I didn't have my phone. The guy says, I live right up there. I'll take him and call. And I just sit there crying and crying. That's why I've been adamant to you about finding this dude. Al says, so you got off of exit 163. And she said, no, it was the county line something. And Al said, oh, the county line road we always take. She says, you turn off of that road. I went the wrong way to start, so I turned right. Al said, but this was the exit off of 25 you turned off of, or was it the county line road? She says, off of 25, you can get off and go in either direction. Al said he's just trying to narrow down where so he can go look. You say he scraped his knees, his elbows, he busted his head and had burns on his arms. And Letecia said they were not bad burns. He had little bubbles from the fire. She said he could have scraped them. He wasn't complaining, or she would have taken him to be seen. She said this was an accident and someone was trying to help me, and I don't know where he went from there. Al said he was most worried about the injury to Gannon's head and asked how bad Gannon was bleeding. And Letecia said pretty bad. So Al asked, well, how bad? Like blood dripping down his face bad? And she said, yeah, the clothes I had on had blood on them. And I said, oh my gosh, I've got to call 911. Al says, where? And Letecia says, I don't know my way around Colorado. Al says, I was thinking if we could find blood on the road. He asked where the blood was coming from, and she said, I don't know. I was panicking. So Al asked if the guy had a phone, and Letecia said he told me he would take Gannon to his house, wrap up his wounds, and call 911. So Al asked if she stayed there and let the guy take Gannon or if she followed him. There's a really long silence here. You can tell this is like her thinking, oh my gosh, like, why would it make sense that I would stay there while a stranger took a very injured boy to his house? And he says, babe, and then the call drops. Al gets back on the stand and he said it sounded like a legitimate crying to him at times on this phone call. He said this was the first time Letecia ever mentioned a head injury to Gannon. And Al said he never saw any blood on any of her clothes after he got back from Oklahoma. They bring in some text messages that took place between February 29th and March 1st. And they're just pre-qualifying these texts. They'll actually be brought in with another witness. So we're going to drop off here for this episode. It kind of can get confusing listening to this, but this is literally just things she said, y'all. This is how all over the place she was. I really think she felt the walls were closing in because every story, he eventually let her know he wasn't buying it. So what does she do? She just changes her story to something completely different, but there's still details woven in from previous stories into the consecutive stories that she tells. That's it for this episode. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Saturday. We will see you soon.